So today we're tackling a topic that uh, pop culture has arguably done more damage to than almost any other mental health condition.
Mhm.
We're talking about dissociative identity disorder, or DD. You probably know it by its old name, multiple personality disorder.
Or from horror movies, which almost always get it wrong, that whole violent Jekyll and Hyde thing.
Exactly. And that's why this deep dive feels so necessary.
It is, because when you actually look at the clinical guidelines, I mean, we're pulling from the DSM-5-TR, the ISSTD, the reality isn't a horror story at all.
It's a survival story.
It's a story about the brain's desperate and just brilliant capacity to survive.
I think that's the core reframing we have to start with. The sources really push us to stop seeing DD as a broken brain
Right.
and start seeing it as a highly successful, though, very costly survival mechanism,
Right.
but successful against what?
Overwhelming repetitive trauma in early childhood. We're usually talking about severe abuse or neglect that happens before the age of, say, 7 to 9.
Okay, so why that age?
Because at that developmental stage, a child's personality hasn't really integrated yet. It hasn't become a single, cohesive I.
Right, so instead of one person forming, the brain just hits a point where reality is too unbearable for one child to handle. So what it installs a kind of firewall.
That's a perfect way to put it. It's a structural dissociation. One part of the mind, what we often call the host, can keep going to school, can play.
While being completely walled off from the part that holds the trauma.
Exactly. It lets the child function as if the abuse isn't happening to them. It preserves some sense of safety, even where there is none.
It's incredibly effective. But you always get the skeptic who says, okay, but isn't this just, role-playing or a very vivid imagination?
That's the most persistent myth out there, and the neurobiology just flat out disagrees.
All right.
We have fMRI scans, studies that show distinct measurable changes in neural activity when different identities or alters take control.
What kind of changes?
You can see shifts in blood flow, different patterns of activation in the amygdala, the hippocampus. You just can't fake that.
So the brain is physically running different software depending on who's in the driver's seat.
Precisely. It's a physiological reality, not a performance.
This leads us to another huge point of confusion, which is with schizophrenia. A patient says, I hear voices, and the immediate assumption is psychosis.
Yeah, that's a common clinical mistake, but the sources draw a massive distinction here.
And it comes down to where the voice is coming from.
It does. In schizophrenia, the hallucination is perceived as external. It sounds like someone is standing right behind you, speaking into your ear.
Whereas in DD, the noise is coming from inside the house.
Yes, it's an internal monologue, or more accurately, a dialogue. Think of it like a crowded room inside your head. These parts, the alters, they might argue or give advice or criticize.
And the person recognizes these voices as coming from inside themselves, even if they feel alien.
Exactly. It's a fragmentation of identity, while psychosis is a break from reality, a very different mechanism.
Let's talk about the practical side of that fragmentation. Because beyond the internal noise, the symptom that seems most disruptive is the amnesia. The sources call it lost time.
And this can be absolutely terrifying. It's not like just forgetting your keys.
Yeah.
We're talking about coming to, standing in a nightclub or on a beach with zero memory of how you got there.
Because another alter took over.
Right. Or you might find clothes in your closet you know you'd never wear, or food in the fridge you don't remember buying. The alters often have their own tastes, their own handwriting, even different visual acuity.
So an adult host might suddenly find themselves unable to read a menu if a child alter is fronting.
It happens. That discontinuity makes life incredibly difficult.
Which brings us to treatment. The old sort of pop culture idea was that you have to exercise these other parts. You have to force them to merge.
Drastically outdated. The clinical landscape has shifted completely on that. The goal is not to kill the alters. I mean, you have to remember, they save the patient's life.
So what's the focus now?
Communication. It's like a mess and corporate merger. You have to get all the stakeholders in the boardroom to stop fighting and start talking to each other.
So final fusion, or becoming one single identity, is that just one possible outcome, not the goal?
It is. And for many, the goal is actually what's called functional multiplicity.
Which means?
The parts stay distinct, but they learn to cooperate, they form a system, they share memories, they negotiate who handles what situation, and they operate like a team instead of a war zone.
So it's about functionality over a kind of forced conformity.
Exactly. And considering this affects somewhere between 1% and 3% of the population, which is about as common as having red hair, we need to respect that functionality.
That statistic is jarring. It means this is happening all around us, often invisibly. Which brings us back to that first idea, resilience. If the human brain can fracture its own essence just to keep a child safe, it really forces you to ask, what else is the mind capable of when it's pushed to the absolute brink?
It suggests that even when we feel shattered, we're fundamentally built to survive.